welcome back to the exhibitor interview portion of the Rural Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I'm delighted to have with me today a longtime supporter of the symposium and in fact, a longtime contributor to the mining industry and to the fortunes of my various clients going over time, Mr. Keith Neumeyer. Keith, welcome and thank you for your ongoing support of this conference.
Well, thanks, Rick, and it's great seeing you today over Zoom, and it's going to even be better seeing you in person in Florida.
I think we're going to have a very good time in Florida, Keith. That isn't to suggest that we didn't have a good time in Vancouver, but given that we know how to have a good time and we have a wonderful venue, I have a high degree of confidence that it'll be fun to be back together in person. Let's get right into it, Keith.
One of the things looks like it's going to be a fantastic event, so sorry for interrupting you.
No worries. One of the things I like to do is have my presenters give a bit of a background on themselves so that people can understand how well qualified they are to talk to the questions that I'm going to ask. Tell us something about your own history prior to founding First Majestic, other capital market successes that you might have had in the natural resources business.
Well, it's been 38 years, and it feels like it's kind of a short 38 years, quite honestly. I started in the financial markets working for three of the largest banks in Canada back in the 80s, and I found myself on the floor of the Vancouver Stock Exchange on the day of the crash of 1987, which was a pretty exciting day, and that led to the Canadian financial institutions being bought up by the banks, and a lot of people in Canada in the financial community being laid off. And I found myself working for publicly traded companies, and I fell in love with mining and ended up, quite quickly, actually, with only a short couple of years, founding a copper company, First Quantum Minerals, in '92, and put together the assets, the management team of that company, and then left that company in 2000, watched the dot-com bubble burst in Y2K and all the nice things that happened, and gold bottoming in 2002, and the resource sector, starting a 10-year bull market, of which I was fortunate enough to start First Majestic Silver, and caught that bull market just at the perfect time when silver was trading at $5 an ounce and gold was trading at about $250 an ounce, and my objective was to build a 10 million ounce producer of silver, and that was achieved, within a decade later, and now it's been 19 years running First Majestic Silver, and it's been a pretty exciting time.
So tell us something about, first of all, the ascent of First Quantum, that is to say, the going public price and the current market capitalization, and tell us, too, in a historical perspective, the success that you've enjoyed with First Majestic. I mean, the truth is that you've built two premier companies in two different commodities, and I want people to know that so that they give your answers to these questions the respect that they deserve.
Well, I guess the trick, I'm not sure if it's so much of a trick, I guess, is believing in yourself and also being stubborn, not letting people knock you off your game, because, people tend to try to do that, to you regularly. And surrounding yourself with, highly qualified people and people that you can trust. Whether in the mining sector, of course, that becomes geologists and engineers and finance people, accountants and so on. And I've been very fortunate to be able to do that over the last 30 some odd years. And I rely on, a core group of people around me. And, we're looking at M&A stuff all the time and looking at corporate ideas and just day-to-day activity. We have over 6,000 employees at First Majestic, and I cannot, assume that I know everything that happens within the business minute to minute throughout every day. That would be just absolutely impossible. But, I have to have good people around me that I trust that are managing the business, so that I know that, things are, happening according to plan. And it's, I've been lucky that way.
I would argue that your success in First Majestic has revolved around two key strategies. One has been to buy very large mines with historic production that were undercapitalized, cash-starved by their former owners, provide cash and capital to them and optimize them. The other has been to buy discoveries that you built from scratch. Perhaps you could describe both of those business strategies and the success that you've enjoyed employing them in First Majestic.
Well, I love buying distressed assets. I love buying stuff that people don't want. They've given up on, they've thrown in the towel. It can be a number of things. It could be just simply the cycle itself, whereby previous management, spent too much money in the wrong places. They didn't finance at the right time. They didn't understand the financial markets and the financial windows that open up and close, quite quickly sometimes, and just not being able to take advantage of those windows. Or it could be geological, whereby they have a different view than our people or our team, or could be production related, lack of capital. It could be metallurgical related, and so we look for these flaws or these windows of opportunities when we're looking at M&A activity. And if we look at something and we can see, hey, look, this is a old producing mine, of course, and that's always the best place to look. When you're looking for a new producing asset, and is there ounces there? Well, what's our view? Can we add life of mine? Can we reduce costs? Can we improve recoveries? And these are things that we throw at everything that we look at when it comes to acquiring any asset. And if the answer is yes, and in the case of our most recent acquisition, which was the Jerritt Canyon mine in Nevada, first of all, we're leaving Mexico and going into one of the best jurisdictions I think there is in the world. And it was gold. It didn't check the silver box, but it checked every other box, and that's why we ended up buying Jerritt Canyon.
Let's do the assets one at a time. And since you started with Jerritt Canyon, let's segue there. Tell me something about the history of the transaction. Tell me what you saw in the deposit that made you think that you could improve the operations. And tell us how long you think and how much capital it's going to take before you turn it around. Obviously, you don't turn around great big ships like Jerritt Canyon overnight. What's it going to take? When might we expect it to perform like the other mines that you've had for longer duration?
Well, Rick, you said exactly what I say. This is a ship turning around, and this is a big ship. Jerritt Canyon was the largest gold mine in the state of Nevada back in the 80s when it was all a series of open pits. Those open pits, in some cases, will be reopened over the next couple of years. At today's metal prices or gold prices at $1,800+ gold, we think the previous open pits run by Freeport-McMoRan back in the 80s will become hugely profitable and will take us to our goal of reaching 200,000 ounces of gold production by 2024 at Jerritt Canyon, which is a pretty big increase compared to where it is today. 2022 will produce somewhere around 110 to 120,000 ounces of gold. Last year produced 110,000 ounces of gold. And when we looked at it, as I said, Rick, we first of all looked at geology because everything starts there. So, it's a big, chunky land package, very, very much underexplored. I would suggest people go to our website, look at the section on Jerritt Canyon and look at all the targets. We're drilling something in the order of 100,000 meters of drilling there just this year. I believe there's 7 rigs currently on site, and they're hitting some pretty interesting stuff. We won't be putting out a new 43-101 until the end of 2023, but nevertheless, we're expecting life of mine at Jerritt Canyon is going to increase substantially, and that's where it starts with the drill bit. Then it goes into getting ore out of the ground. And this mill has got a 5,000 ton a day capacity. It's only running at 2,400 tons per day, so it's got an enormous upside if we can get the ore out of the ground and get it into this mill, and we think we can do that.
So let's work backwards then. This is the most recent acquisition. Talk to me about either Ermitaño or Santa Elena, but one and then the other, because I want to give people a sense of the fact that you have acquired projects, improved projects. That's the way you've built this company. So take me through either of those deposits first and then the other second. Tell us how you acquired them, what you were thinking about, and how you went about optimizing them for the benefit of your shareholders.
Well, interesting point, Rick, is that, if you go back over the 19-year history First Majestic. I think, and I'd have to look exactly to make sure this statement is true, but I'm pretty sure it is true. Every single mine we've bought in the history of the company has become the largest mine in our portfolio at some time during its life. Now, of course, we have shut down a few mines because we've acquired bigger mines. And then, when you get to the size of a company like First Majestic, you have the same amount of manpower, the same amount of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a 1 million ounce producer compared to an asset that's producing 5 million ounces. So we're always looking to get bigger and bigger. So the smaller mines, make less sense. But in the case of Santa Elena, it was owned by a company called Silvercrest, and this is back in 2015. The market was not particularly great for mining companies. That's when I put together First Mining Gold, for example. Buying up gold assets for less than $10 an ounce, and Silvercrest, First Majestic, was fortunate enough to purchase, and we paid I think around $130 million if my memory serves me correctly. And it was making something in the order of $5 million a quarter in free cash flow, but the recoveries were only 65%, which was obviously quite low. And within a very short period of time, I believe it was less than a quarter, we had recoveries up over 80%. Today, recoveries are in the 95 to 97% range, and that makes a huge difference to your cash flow and your profitability. We were then quite fortunate to discover the Ermitaño project, which you just mentioned, which is part of the Santa Elena complex. So Santa Elena is over 250,000 acres in size, 100,000 hectares approximately. And the Ermitaño discovery is 4 kilometers away from the mill, and now that's becoming most of the feed. About 70% of the feed is now coming from Ermitaño, and those shareholders who are paying attention to First Majestic's financials, you'll see that the Ermitaño project is really doing amazing things for the business. We're actually expecting Ermitaño or Santa Elena combined will produce somewhere in the order of 8+ million ounces of silver equivalent this year, which is pretty exciting from 5.5 last year.
At present, given the commodity mix with your existing Mexican silver production, you're still a silver dominant company, but that begins to change. The complexion begins to change as you succeed with Jarrett Canyon. Would you suggest that in terms of your future operations that you'll be more agnostic as to commodity, or do you intend, where possible, to continue to be silver focused?
Yeah, we're trying our best to be quite frank, Rick. It's Pan American, Coeur d'Alene, Hecla, they all used to be primary silver companies. But I can't explain why gold mines are easier to buy than silver mines. We've been looking around the planet in all jurisdictions, looking for the next best silver project. I'm not wanting to go south, particularly into Latin America. I think that the chaos that we're seeing in some of the Latin American jurisdictions is something I'd prefer to avoid. So we're focusing, in the United States, in Canada, in Australia. We've actually even looked into Europe in some cases, but we just can't find that great silver asset. So it may require an M&A transaction to actually build our silver portfolio. We can go buy a bunch of gold mines tomorrow if we wanted to, but we're trying to avoid falling into that same situation that the other peers have fallen into, whereby they're producing less than 50% of their revenue in silver. We're still north of 50%, but it's a challenge.
Sure. One of the things that's always interested me about your method of building companies, and I should disclose a conflict. I was a very early First Majestic shareholder, First Quantum shareholder. And so I've been a beneficiary of your hard work twice. But one of the things that's always impressed me about you as an entrepreneur is your mastery of capital markets, your understanding, first of all, about how to build a large, responsive and loyal retail constituency, while at the same time servicing capital markets constituencies well, and institutional investors. All of that goes to cost of capital. You have been able to raise money when money was scarce, unlike many of your peers, which I would suggest is one of the reasons that you've come out of bear markets being a winner. If you could talk something about the investment that you've made in financial public relations, the cult, if you will, around First Majestic, and also your willingness and understanding that you take money when it's available and you allocate money when other people don't have access to it. I think that's been an integral part of the success that I've enjoyed with you at the helm of First Majestic.
Well, the word that comes to, or the phrase that comes to my mind is road warrior. I see you probably more times on the road than I see most CEOs of mining companies. Mining companies, sometimes I'm shocked when I look at their cost of capital when they're paying brokers, 6 or 8% cash and 6 or 8% warrants, and I just shake my head. And I compare their cost of capital to mine, and I relate that to how many times I've seen them in mining conferences and standing at their booth, and and how many of their shareholders do they actually know and talk to on a regular basis. And I think there's a direct correlation to that. And of course, there's a lot of work. I've been traveling constantly for my entire career, but I actually like doing it. I've got my own money at risk. I'm a significant shareholder of First Majestic, and I was a significant shareholder of First Quantum and other companies that people are aware that I know of, or that know me, like First Mining and others. And I put my money where my mouth is, and I as honest as I possibly can, without divulging insider information, of course. But and I think people respect that, and I talk what's on my mind, and if I don't like something, I'll tell people, and so on. So I think just being honest with people and then being there, in front of people, I think bodes extremely well for being in my position. And I question people that take the opposite side and then decide not to travel at all and not to show up, at these conferences. And I question to them, and sometimes face to face, why are you even running a public company?
Finally, is it reasonable for investors to expect another transaction, or is it more reasonable to expect you guys to put Jarrett Canyon to bed, so to speak, optimize it and use your capital there?
Look, Jarrett Canyon, you asked the question about how much money we're going to spend on Jarrett Canyon earlier, and I didn't answer the question, but it's about $70 million we're going to spend this year, and that's exploration, development, and mill improvements, and it's a big number. And I really want to see Jarrett Canyon turn around and start producing cash flow. It is a bit of a high cost producer right now because we are expensing a lot of the costs that we're spending, like the tailings dam extension that's going to last 10 years. But it cost us $13 million to build it, and we had to expense the whole thing. So it hits our costs and other expenses as well, which are all one-off types of expenses, but all are necessary expenses to be able to turn that asset around. So best case scenario, I would like to see Jarrett Canyon in positive cash flow before any M&A activity occurred. And that's likely a Q4 story in order to get Jarrett Canyon back in the black. But, so will something happen in 2023? Well, who knows? I don't, it takes two to tango always, as you know. But hey, Rick, if a great asset came to my plate today, and we loved it, I fell in love with it, we would pull the trigger.